In the sacred tome The Power of Now, authored by the Venerable Eckhart Tolle, there lies a wisdom most profound, a beacon for the weary soul adrift in the tempest of time. Since its first revelation to the world in the year of our Lord, 1997, this work hath beckoned seekers of truth to awaken from the slumber of mind and enter into the hallowed stillness of the present moment. With the voice of one steeped in ancient knowing, Tolle doth unveil the snares of the ego, phantoms that bind mankind to sorrow and unrest, and gently guideth the reader toward the eternal now, wherein dwelleth true peace and liberation. Drawing upon the sacred echoes of many traditions, be they the teachings of the Buddha, the Christ, or the sages of old, yet aligning himself to no creed in particular, the author offers not doctrine, but a path, a return to presence, to being, to the silence beneath thought. In humble dialogue and contemplative reflection, he inviteth the reader to relinquish the illusion of past and future, and thus behold the divine essence within. The Power of Now is no mere book, but a living guide, a lantern for the soul's journey toward light and wholeness. Let us turn to Eckhart Tolle as he explains his powerful statement, "You are not your mind," and shares how he became a spiritual guide for millions in search of inner peace and clarity. I seldom dwell upon the past and rarely feel the need to revisit it. Yet, I shall briefly recount the path that led me to become a spiritual teacher and how this book came into being. Until the age of 30, my life was marked by an almost constant undercurrent of anxiety, broken only by spells of deep, suicidal despair. It now feels as though I'm recalling a distant life, perhaps not even mine at all. One night, shortly after my 29th birthday, I awoke in the small hours with a profound sense of dread. Though familiar, this time the feeling was far more intense. The stillness of the night, the shadowed shapes of furniture, and the faint sound of a passing train all seemed alien, menacing, even devoid of meaning. I was gripped by a deep loathing of the world, yet nothing felt more unbearable than my own existence. The thought kept circling in my mind, I cannot live with myself any longer. Then, in a moment of strange clarity, I questioned it. If I cannot live with myself, who is the I and who is the self I cannot live with? In that instant, something shifted. My thoughts ceased, yet I remained acutely aware. I was drawn into a powerful current of energy. Fear overtook me, my body trembled, and then a voice arose from within. Resist nothing. As I surrendered to what felt like a void, one I sensed existed within rather than outside, all fear dissolved. I fell into it. What followed cannot be recalled. I awoke to the delicate song of a bird and saw light seeping through the curtains as though for the first time. The world, once heavy with meaninglessness, now shimmered with love. Even ordinary objects seemed to radiate aliveness and beauty. For months, I lived in a state of profound peace and bliss. Though that intensity eventually softened, it became my natural state. I understood little of what had happened until later, through spiritual study and guidance, I came to see that the suffering had forced my consciousness to withdraw from a false self, a fiction crafted by the mind. What remained was the simple presence of I am, a silent, unshakable awareness. In time, others began to approach me, sensing something they longed for, and so, without seeking it, I found myself with a new identity, a spiritual teacher. A beggar had sat by the roadside for over 30 years. One day a stranger passed by. "Spare some change?" the beggar muttered, offering his worn cap. "I've nothing to give you," replied the stranger. Then he asked, "What's that you're sitting on?" "Just an old box," the beggar replied. "Been there as long as I can remember." "Ever looked inside?" "No point. It's empty." "Have a look," said the stranger. Reluctantly, the beggar prized it open, only to discover the box was full of gold. "I am that stranger, offering nothing but a suggestion. Look within, not into a box, but into yourself." You may say, "But I'm no beggar." Yet those who haven't discovered the radiant joy and deep peace of being live as beggars, no matter their worldly wealth. They search outwardly for fleeting satisfaction, while within them lies a treasure infinitely greater. Enlightenment isn't some superhuman feat. It is the quiet realization of oneness with being, your essence beyond name and form. The Buddha called it the end of suffering. Simple, yet profound. Being is not to be grasped by thought. It is felt when the mind is still, when one is fully present. That presence is enlightenment. The word God has, through centuries of misuse, lost much of its original depth. I do use it on occasion, though with great care. By misuse, I mean the tendency of individuals, many of whom have never touched the sacred or glimpsed the vastness behind the word, to speak of it with authority or to dismiss it as if they understood what they were rejecting. Such misuse gives rise to dogmatic beliefs and egoic illusions. Our God is the only true God, or Nietzsche's oft-quoted, "God is dead." The word has become closed, evoking immediate mental imagery, perhaps not of a bearded patriarch, yet still of something external, distant, and almost always male. No word, whether God, being, or otherwise, can capture the ineffable reality to which it points. The essential question is, does the word help or hinder your ability to sense the transcendent? Being may not explain anything more than God, yet it holds an advantage. It remains open, free from form or ownership. One cannot picture it, nor can anyone lay claim to it. Being is your essence, felt as the quiet presence behind the thought I am, prior to any identity. From the word being, it is but a step to the experience itself. What stands as the greatest barrier to experiencing reality as it truly is? Identification with the mind, an attachment so strong that thought becomes compulsive. The inability to cease thinking is a profound affliction, though rarely recognized as such, for nearly everyone shares it. This constant mental noise obscures the stillness within, the silent presence inseparable from being, and constructs a false self, born of thought, which brings with it fear and suffering. Descartes once declared, "I think, therefore I am." In truth, this equates thinking with being and identity with thought, an error at the root of much human pain. The compulsive thinker lives as though separate from life, in a world fragmented by thought and riddled with conflict. Enlightenment is the return to wholeness, a unity with life, with one's innermost self, and with the formless essence of being. It is freedom not only from suffering, but from the tyranny of incessant thinking. This is liberation. When you are identified with your mind, a screen of judgments and concepts clouds all connection with yourself, with others, with nature, and with the divine. This illusion of separateness is the true forgetting, no longer feeling your oneness with all that is. The mind, when no longer a tool but a master, becomes destructive, it uses you. The moment you recognize that you are not the thinker, awareness begins to awaken. You observe thought rather than being consumed by it. In that still presence, a deeper intelligence emerges, one from which true joy, peace, love, and creativity flow. This is the beginning of awakening. Watching the thinker is a transformative practice, one that reveals the quiet power within. If someone were to say, "I hear a voice in my head," they'd likely be referred to a psychiatrist. Yet in truth, almost everyone experiences a voice, or several, running ceaselessly within their mind, a stream of involuntary thoughts. These internal dialogues, often unnoticed, are mistaken for oneself. You may have encountered individuals speaking aloud to themselves on the street and dismissed them as mad. But the reality is that most people engage in similar mental chatter, only silently. This inner voice judges, complains, compares, and frets over the past or future, often creating imaginary scenarios filled with fear. It is the mind rehashing the past or projecting anxieties into the future. This voice is not grounded in the present. It reflects the conditioning of your personal history and the collective mindset of society. As such, it distorts your perception, veiling the present with the lens of the past. Often it becomes one's worst critic, draining vitality and fueling inner conflict. The path to freedom begins with awareness. Start by listening to the voice within without judgment. Simply observe. Notice recurring thought patterns like an old record playing. This is what it means to watch the thinker, to become the witnessing presence behind thought. In this witnessing, a new dimension of consciousness emerges. You recognize there is the voice, and here I am, observing it. This awareness is not a thought, but a deeper presence. As attention rests in this space, thought loses its grip. Brief gaps of stillness arise, moments of no mind, in which peace quietly enters. These gaps may be fleeting at first, but with practice they deepen. Stillness grows, joy and clarity begin to emanate from within. Far from a trance, this is a heightened state of alertness and vitality. You become fully present. Your energy field subtly transforms. As you move deeper into this still awareness, you touch the state of pure consciousness. In this space, the content of thought, emotion, and even the world itself diminishes in significance. Yet paradoxically, this isn't a withdrawal from life, but a deeper connection to it, selfless, vast, and alive. Another way to create space in the mind is through full attention to the now. Simple acts, walking upstairs, washing your hands, feeling your breath, can become portals into presence. The key is complete awareness. The sign of success, a growing sense of peace within. And one day, you may smile gently at the voice in your head, recognizing it as a mere echo of thought, not the essence of who you are. When your sense of self no longer depends on it, true freedom begins. Thinking is undoubtedly essential to navigate and survive in this world. The mind is a marvelous instrument, a tool meant for specific tasks. But like any tool, it is meant to be set down once its job is done. Yet most people are caught in a cycle of compulsive, repetitive thinking, often negative, frequently useless, and at times even harmful. If you observe your thoughts, you will soon recognize this inner noise and the drain it places on your energy. This incessant thinking is not just a habit, it is an addiction. What defines addiction is the loss of choice. It feels as though you cannot stop. It provides fleeting pleasure, but invariably turns into pain. Why do we become addicted to thought? Because we mistake it for who we are. The ego, the false self, arises from this identification with the mind. It is constructed from personal and cultural conditioning and kept alive through continuous mental activity. To the ego, the present moment is of little value. The mind, under its control, is obsessed with past and future, using the past to shape identity and projecting hope or fulfillment into the future. Even when it attends to the present, it filters it through the distortions of memory. Thus, the present becomes a mere stepping stone towards some imagined future. However, the present moment holds the key to true liberation, but you cannot discover it while trapped within the mind. You might fear that letting go of compulsive thinking means losing your analytical edge or intellectual strength. In truth, it is not a regression to a primitive state, but a leap forward in consciousness. Thinking and consciousness are not the same. Thought is a small aspect of consciousness. Enlightenment is not the absence of thought, but freedom from it. In the awakened state, the mind is used purposefully and with clarity, then laid to rest. One moves fluidly between thought and stillness, allowing true creativity and insight to arise from deeper awareness. All genuine creativity, whether in art, science, or music, emerges from a place of inner stillness, not from the clutter of incessant thought. Even renowned scientists have acknowledged that their most profound breakthroughs occurred in moments of mental quiet. The mind excels at survival, collecting, defending, analyzing, but it is not inherently creative. True creativity flows from beyond the mind. A single human cell, in its staggering complexity, demonstrates an intelligence vastly greater than any thought-generated process. Life itself, including your very being, was not born of thought. When the mind is reconnected with this deeper intelligence, when it serves rather than governs, it becomes a brilliant instrument. It is then no longer the master, but the servant of something infinitely greater. When I speak of the mind, I do not refer solely to thought. The mind also encompasses emotion and the often unconscious, reactive mental emotional patterns. Emotion arises precisely at the junction where mind and body meet. It is the body's response to the activity of the mind, a mirror of your thoughts, reflected in physical form. For instance, a thought of hostility or threat generates a surge of energy in the body, which we recognize as anger. Similarly, the thought of being under threat, whether real or imagined, causes contraction in the body, which manifests as fear. Scientific research has confirmed that strong emotions produce measurable changes in body chemistry. These represent the material expression of emotional states. Often, we are unaware of our thought patterns, but by observing our emotions, we can begin to uncover them. The more you are identified with your thoughts, preferences, judgments, and interpretations, in other words, the less present you are, the more intense your emotional responses will be, whether you are aware of them or not. If you are disconnected from your emotions, they may eventually surface in the form of physical discomfort or illness. Or in some cases, unconscious emotional patterns can manifest as external events. Individuals who carry unresolved anger, for example, may frequently find themselves in confrontations, as if they attract those experiences without meaning to. To reconnect with your emotions, bring awareness to the inner energy field of your body. Feel it from within. Sometimes mind and body appear to be at odds. The mind may say no, while the body, through emotion, says yes. If such a conflict arises, it is often the emotion that speaks the truth of your state, though not the ultimate truth of who you are. By observing emotion as it arises in the body without judgment, you shift into the role of the witness. You are no longer the emotion. You are the presence observing it. This act of observation, of presence, brings what is unconscious into the light of awareness. Make it a habit to ask, what's happening within me right now? But do not analyze, simply watch. If there is no strong emotion, take your attention even deeper into the quiet energy of your body. This presence is a gateway into being. Emotions are often amplified thought patterns, and their intensity makes them challenging to observe. Without enough presence, you may become absorbed in them, creating a feedback loop where thought fuels emotion, and emotion intensifies thought. All emotions are, at their root, variations of one fundamental feeling: pain, born of losing touch with who you truly are beyond name and form. The mind seeks to escape this pain, but only ever masks it. In fact, its resistance worsens it. To be free, you must release your identification with the mind, with ego. Only then does the pain dissolve, and being, the quiet essence of who you are, emerges. What of the so-called positive emotions? Love, joy, peace. These, in truth, are not emotions in the ordinary sense. They are intrinsic aspects of your natural state, arising from inner stillness and your connectedness with being. At times, you may experience fleeting glimpses of them, moments of quiet joy or profound peace, whenever a temporary gap opens in the stream of thought. Such moments may occur unexpectedly, often triggered by encounters with beauty, deep physical exertion, or even danger, when the mind falls silent, and what remains is a stillness filled with presence. Within that silence, love reveals itself. Joy arises, not as excitement, but as quiet aliveness. Peace settles, not passive, but vibrant and awake. Yet these glimpses are usually brief, as the mental noise soon returns. True love, joy, and peace cannot flourish while you remain dominated by the mind. And though people speak of them as emotions, they arise from a place far deeper. To access them fully, one must first become conscious of and present with one's emotions, since love and joy are not emotions, but states of being untouched by opposites. Unlike emotions, they have no counterpart. They do not belong to the realm of duality governed by the mind. Emotions, by contrast, are temporary fluctuations, often rooted in identification with external events or inner stories. The pleasure experienced through external sources is transient and frequently followed by its opposite, pain. Today's source of delight becomes tomorrow's cause of sorrow. A love rooted in need or attachment can swiftly shift into resentment, jealousy, or hatred. True love does not inflict suffering, nor does real joy collapse into pain. What we often call love in ordinary relationships is laced with craving and dependency, intoxicating at first, but quickly fluctuating between attraction and rejection. Yet even within such conditioned dynamics, there can be moments when a deeper, incorruptible presence briefly surfaces. These glimpses are not illusions. They are true. though they are easily veiled once more by the restless activity of the mind. Just as the sun remains ever present behind the thickest clouds, so too does your true nature, peaceful, joyful, loving, remain hidden behind mental noise. It cannot be lost, only obscured. The Buddha taught that pain arises through craving. The mind searches for salvation or satisfaction in the future or through external things, a futile substitution for the direct experience of being. When you are identified with the mind, you are those cravings. Your sense of self is entangled with them. Even the desire to become enlightened becomes just another form of grasping, a hope projected into the future. Do not seek to rid yourself of desire, nor try to achieve enlightenment. Simply become present, witness the mind, be the observing presence. As the Buddha's name implies, be the awakened one. Humanity has long lived in pain, ever since it fell from the timeless now into the dimension of thought and lost its sense of the sacred. With that loss came a perception of disconnection, from others, from life, and from source. This separation gave birth to suffering. Pain remains inevitable as long as you are identified with the mind. This includes not only emotional pain, but also the physical pain and illness that often result from unaddressed emotion. Resentment, guilt, jealousy, anger, even mild irritability are all expressions of this deeper suffering, and every high, every fleeting pleasure contains the seed of its opposite. Those who've sought highs through substances know the inevitable crash that follows. Similarly, many have experienced how a relationship that once brought joy can quickly turn into a source of pain. From a higher perspective, both polarities, what we call positive and negative, are simply different expressions of the same underlying pain tied to the egoic state. There are two dimensions to this pain: the pain created now and the accumulated pain of the past stored in the body and mind. To awaken is to cease generating pain in the present and to dissolve the pain of the past. This is the path to freedom, and it begins with presence. And that concludes our video. If you enjoyed the content as much as we did, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications to stay up to date with all our updates. Thanks for being part of our community. See you in the next video.